Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of r/slash entitled people. In today's episode, male POC who grew up in absolute poverty told by wife's trust fund friends I have privilege and should forego a promotion so a female subordinate can be promoted instead. Entitled man in parking lot. Entitled bully fired and escorted from the building. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. Male POC who grew up in absolute poverty told by wife's trust fund friends I have privilege and should forego a promotion so a female subordinate can be promoted instead. Was at an outdoor social distancing function when this happened. I'm a male POC who grew up dirt poor. Like leftover clothes from the hospital lost and found for Christmas poor. I joined the army out of high school, then went to college, and now live a comfortable life, first and only in my family to go/graduate. My wife is white and from a rather affluent family. Her friends are mostly white and mostly from affluent families too. At this function, several of them attributed my recent raise and company promotion to the fact that I'm male and have privilege. They believe that I should reject my promotion and let my protege, 13 years my junior W11 less years at the company and totally unfit for the responsibilities, by her own admission, a white female from an affluent family herself, have the position for the betterment of society. While I won't act like, in general, men aren't in more positions of authority than women, we are, to assume every male has privilege over every female is asinine. The privilege that comes being born into a wealthy family, a wealthy family whose wealth is centuries old, far outweighs the privilege of having a penis. When said penis, and the rest of me, was raised in abject poverty. Given the current social dynamic of race in America, I also find it tone deaf that some wealthy/middle-class white women seem to want to ignore a person's skin color if they have external genitalia when making their who is privileged calculations. Oh, it goes far beyond merely tone deaf. Yeah, I'm actually guessing it's racism disguised as an anti-male thing. Congrats on the promotion, dude. Glad all your hard work paid off. I would bet my next paycheck that every single one of those women would change their tune if the same thing was applied to the next plastic surgeon they go to as a woman who is vastly unqualified for their procedure. They would probably want the overqualified male versus the underqualified female. These women are deluded. And congrats on the promotion. Entitled man in parking lot. Sounding off a bit here, because I need to. Just had an encounter with an entitled man and his wife. So I pulled into the parking lot, and I was happy to see that there was a convenient space between two cars, so I drove into it. I have a small car, and there was about 1.5 feet either side of the car. I was well placed. But the neighboring car, a huge SUV, had people in who were just getting out. The next thing I knew, the man started shouting at me that his wife couldn't open her door to get out of their vehicle because of the way I parked. Then she got out and shouted at me that the way I was parked stopped her getting out. I was selfish. I honestly didn't know what to say. "Are you insane?" came to mind. She obviously had managed fine. I just walked away in the end, and I was in the shop for no more than 2 minutes. I want to start a trend of carrying air horns. When people get like that, it's just a horn to the face until they shut up. Like bleeping, but IRL. Honestly, that sounds like something I'm going to implement. I'm on board with this. I'm imagining their face skin rippling and hair blowing back/wigs blowing off. Excellent idea, but you may need to carry mace as well for when they turn fully feral. She got out, then yelled at me that I stopped her from getting out. I would have just looked at them and then said, "Clearly, I didn't stop you from getting out because you're right in front of me. I think you need a neck-up checkup." Some people just suck. I had one today as well. I went to McDonald's this morning to get breakfast as a little treat. Cashier asked me to pull forward, so I did as best I could. They only have about a 12-foot space you can pull forward to, so I inched up as much as I could. Lady behind me didn't like that, and after getting her food, she honked at me, finally pulled around me, then screamed out her window at me. I just turned my music up, smiled, and waved at her. She was still able to easily get around me, so there was no need to yell at me. That's what I do now, smile, wave, and blow kisses. It only enrages them further. 1.5 feet on either side is normal amount of space to open the door and get out, unless you are disabled or a bowling ball. Entitled bully fired and escorted from the building. So for a bit on context, I'm a management consultancy contractor, which for most people means I'm a generalist with 1 or 2 specialization. Unfortunately, this is not the case since I'm actually an ex-management consultancy executive, which means I have corporate HR and legal training, which is important later. This happened about 8 years ago. I was working on a massive organizational transformation program involving 80,000 staff with my part covering 40,000 staff. As you can imagine, it's really critical to get buy-in and have high levels of engagement with the staff through a team of consultants with professional behaviors. One of the key aspects of this new way of working was that it should be adopted, though, a team that embodied the new way of working, and that was our strategy. As part of my work, I needed to build out a team because frankly, there was no way I could do all the work by myself. I have a rule: everyone works, no hierarchy. Even if I had extra duties, I would not ask others to do things I would not do myself. I was fortunate to internally hire a few people, all contractors coming to the end on their existing contracts, who knew the score that as a contractor we work really hard and are focused on completing work, not serving time. I also met a person I will call Ms. Awesome. She basically ran the whole program as a PM in the PMO office. I'd helped her rebuild all the reporting in day as they had moved Jira versions and expected her to know the new version. Not my job, but I'm a team player and Jira admin. She in turn suggested her boyfriend for one of my open roles. Let's call him Mr. Awesome. He was, as the title says, a great consultant, thoughtful, creative, and open to leaning, as we all should be. As part of this drive, I was given a perm member of staff we can call Gail. She talked a great game, but clearly did not understand the mechanics of change or what we were trying to do. Also, she was unaware that her role was being demised at the end of the year since her skill set was that of a personal assistant and she was not technical. Finally, we get to the EP, let's call her Karen. It is after all her real name. Gail hired her in without telling me, which of course was a big red flag. However, I work with people, handing out rope to see what they do with it. So I get feedback from everyone. It's part of our new way of working, to have daily calls and to take feedback at the executive level across the whole transformation. Clearly, everyone has an agenda and personal like or dislike can color what people say, however, actions are very hard to hide. I was not present at the incident, but since there was raised voices involved, I heard about it pretty quickly from multiple witnesses, but not from anyone involved. As the accountable person, it means I have to investigate, hear everyone's perspective, and decide what is best for my client, their reputation, and of course the health of the transformation. First, I emailed Karen to ask her about the incident and ask her to explain what happened and why I had not been told about it. Her response was that she worked for Gail, that she did not report to me, and that it was none of my business. I was surprised with this response since it was so defensive and all of it was wrong. Everyone in the team was coming out of my multi-million-pound budget. Okay, note to self, catch up with Gail on a couple of points. Same email to Mr. Awesome, he explained that Karen had tried to order him to do some of her work. He explained to Karen that he was busy with work I had set him. She became aggressive and told him that she worked for the perm Gail and that if he did not do as she said, she would get him fired. He refused. I sent another email asking why he had not told me, and he said he did not want to make things worse. I asked him to keep notes on any further engagement with Karen or Gail. At this point, I had done the baseline investigation, so I contacted our HR business partner for advice. It's really important to create data points because at this point I was not sure what had happened or why, regardless of what I had been told. Next, I contacted Gail because she had hired Karen. I asked about what had happened and Karen's belief that she did not work for me. Gail confirmed that Karen had told her that Mr. Awesome had been aggressive when she asked for help, and that she was happy to work this through with Karen and Mr. Awesome. I think she was really surprised when I said no. I had previously asked for Karen's CV but had not arrived. I now formally requested it as part of the investigation. She complied as she could see where this was going. It turned out that Karen had no skills or experience related to the work she was being asked to do by me, through Gail, and it transpired that Gail was using her as a PA. For context, a contact PA was on 150 pounds a day and Karen was on 600 pounds a day as Gail had got her this job. The fog was becoming clearer now. Karen was being put on the spot to cover up the fact that she did not know how to do the work. Unfortunately, because I had conflicting stories, the next step was to interview everyone involved. I first requested a chat with Karen. She found excuses to not have the meeting. Mr. Awesome arranged one ASAP. I had my meeting with Mr. Awesome. He did not embellish anything, but was quite disturbed by the threat to his job by Karen. I informed him that neither Karen nor Gail had any such authority and that HR had been engaged regarding the incident. He looked relieved and asked about what happens next. I advised I would give Karen the same opportunity to give her side and then speak to the witnesses. Over a 2-week period, I tried to nail Karen down to a meeting. Every time she came up with an excuse about a meeting or a call, which I knew to be a lie since I could see her calendar. Given this behavior, I contacted HR again, advised of my experience so far, Karen's behavior, and lack of professional skills. They advised that I terminate her contract and have a member of security on the floor should they be needed. I finally managed to get a meeting with Karen. Gail was present. However, Karen would not come into the meeting room. At this point, I was still willing to work with her, but unfortunately, she aggressively told me from the open plan office space I had no authority over her. I expect it was a great show from the main office. I invited her into the room. She refused again. At this point, I'd had enough. I called a security guard and then told her to put her ID card on the desk and that she would be escorted out of the building. And this is when it went nuclear. She went insane, shouting and cursing just in time for the security guard to arrive. He took her ID pass, would not let her pick up the work computer, and escorted her from the building. Mr. Awesome and Ms. Awesome were in the open plan office space and saw everything. Gail just carried on as if nothing had happened. By the way, Mr. Awesome and Mrs. Awesome are now married with children. And what happened to Gail for hiring Karen without your consent, using Karen as a PA, and not telling Karen that she worked for you? To be honest, nothing. It changed the work dynamic, but there were no consequences apart from the leadership knowing she was not someone who should hire anyone. I would have fired both Karen and Gail. The issues for Gail were her hiring someone with a higher pay than warranted and being dishonest with you by omitting/hiding relevant facts. I agree, but that was not my call. If I'd done that, I would have been fired. Gail should be getting fired as well. Agreed, but since she was already on the way out and was perm, I left that to the internal teams to deal with. Why wasn't Gail let go? She obviously was paying Karen £450 more a week than she deserved and being used as a PA instead of the position that needed to be filled. By the way, Mr. Awesome and Mrs. Awesome are now married with children. Awesome. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and we will see you in the next video.